afternoon, and thank you for joining us on Across the Fence. I'm Jolene Whitney. Yesterday, we began a conversation about AI, artificial intelligence, and we focused on the positive side of this cutting-edge technology. And you can visit our YouTube channel to watch that program, but today we'll be focusing on a bit more of the anxiety-ridden and darker side of artificial intelligence. Now, I'm not a robot, but we asked an AI to sum up some of the fears and anxieties about machine learning, and AI had this to say for itself. The fear of AI often stems from its rapid advancement and the potential to outpace human control. Many worries about the ethical implications of machines make decisions that could affect our lives, from job displacement to surveillance. Additionally, the possibility of autonomous systems acting unpredictably raises concerns about security and safety. So our guide for this genuine conversation about artificial intelligence is Bettyjo Bouchey, and she's the Chief Officer at UVM's Professional and Continuing Education Program. Welcome back.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And so when you kind of first heard about AI, what was your initial reaction?
Wow. Right? I am not a robot. I think that's part of our dialogue this morning.
We've got that settled, neither of us are.
Yeah, I think we settled that early on. But really sort of, wow. We now have this tool to do these things, in 2022, sort of readily available to any consumer. This was a pretty big deal.
And the idea of maybe machines taking over has been a long-standing thing in science fiction, but is there any truth to that given AI?
I think there's a kernel of truth in every scary story, right? As there are in every good joke, right? But I think what I tend to lean on is, we have some founding grandfathers in some cases in the artificial intelligence space, John McCarthy being one of them. And he sort of famously quoted saying, it will be 450, 500 years from now until this artificial generative intelligence, right? Singularity with machines. And in that time, we would have to have several Einsteins in the mix. Now, do we have some Einsteins in the mix? For sure. So will we get there sooner than later? I don't think so. I think we can do a lot of things to also govern how that might come into the world as well.
How about some privacy concerns?
Of course. So I was talking to a group of students about a year ago saying, just like we would counsel you not to put your social security number into Google, we would say the same thing about perhaps doing that with a ChatGPT, right? So are there privacy concerns, security concerns, as there are any others? Of course. I think we have to wonder what is the black box behind this. We have to, if we're going to encourage someone to use one of these tools, particularly in an academic setting, we need to understand what they will be doing with these data, what they will be doing with the information, that is plugged into it. So again, just like anything else, we do need to be thinking about these things, though arguably a lot of this information is already out in the world that we are kind of worried about putting in there now.
And when it comes to pretty much any big advancement in technology in the past, there's always a concern about maybe job displacement. Is that something we should be worried about in this case as well?
I think that we will not get to the point of, technological unemployment, right? I don't think that that is a reality. What I think is a reality, very much like other, revolutions, is we will see a shift in skill that will have to be learned by either previous incumbent workers or new ones, right? So will we be training people to do sort of the, kind of menial, mundane tasks in each of our jobs? Probably not, right? Will we have tools to do that will allow us to do more with less? I think so. So I think we'll again see that shift in skill. We'll have to skill folks up, skill them differently, but I do not think it is going to completely eradicate certain jobs.
And we talked a little bit yesterday about how it kind of depends how you ask your question to ChatGPT, how it's going to answer. And so is it something where it's learning? Does it learn from its mistakes?
It does, yes. Again, well, I should say, it depends on the tool that you're using, whether it can or will learn from its mistakes. But generally speaking, the tools that we have readily available to us now are learning. And if any of you have asked Alexa a question and she's asked you back, did I answer correctly? Have you ever had that experience?
No, I don't have one.
Wow. Okay. So I think we've uncovered something here. But so she'll ask, did I respond on the right device, or did I answer your, question correctly? And this is a learning mechanism, sort of this reinforcement learning model that has now been baked into many of these engines. So the short answer is yes. Is it learning all the right things? I mean, I guess that's really the big question.
And one topic that comes up when we talk about AI is kind of the ethical component of AI. Is that more of just an issue for humans and that doesn't transfer to artificial intelligence?
Well, it's a really big question, right? I am not a philosopher. I wish I was. I just feel like I would be a much smarter individual if I was. I think that the ethics is a human construct, right? So we decide what is good, what is bad, and what is in between. Do computers understand that? Not necessarily, right? And I think that's really sort of the reason I don't worry about, machine singularity so much right now, is because many of these tools, whether it's an agent, trying to help you eat better, or if you're putting questions out to a ChatGPT, what it's doing is a very singular thing. It has a very focused task ahead of it, and it's not contextualized by very much unless you tell it to. So is it ethical? Probably not, unless we've told it these are the ethics, and the humans are the ones that decide what is ethical and what isn't. Does that need to shift over time? Probably, right? We need to continue to think about what are the guardrails, who is going to govern the guardrails, right? Who are those enforcing agents? I don't think we know that right now.
And what are ways that somebody like myself can kind of harness the power of AI without feeling that loss of autonomy that might come from it?
Right. I certainly that's a personal, decision. I think the example I just gave around agents helping you eat better, the agents that we have, in our watches, in our Aura rings, these tools that help us live a healthier life. I think these are wonderful and really useful applications for AI. Tools that help us manage our personal finances, and maximize our retirement income, right? So these are the right tools for everyday citizens. Do we want to get into some of the bigger stuff quite yet as everyday citizens? I'm not sure, right? But I think we will see, over time, more agency by you in using these tools, and we'll be able to make those decisions for ourselves at those times.
And is it something that I can opt out of if I maybe don't want to use it while still having my cell phone or my laptop or all the technology I've gotten used to?
So, in short, no. And I guess I should temper that to say there are some very clear lines in the sand that some of our platforms have drawn to say we are going to show you or allow you or make it easy to opt out of your data being used for training of our AI models, right? So, some of the social media platforms have been very transparent on how to do that. And by the way, it's not just posting that on Facebook saying, I don't want Facebook to train on my data. That is not a thing, right? You have to actually, Facebook, you have to go through a few steps to opt yourself out of the training component. So, it's not as easy to do that, and my goodness, you would just have to do that. It would be a full-time job to try to opt yourself out of the use of AI in everyday systems that we're using. And sometimes I think we don't even know that there is some AI underneath the platform that we're using. So, it's tough, right? I don't think we can spend as much time doing that.
And you talked a little bit before when we were talking about the workforce about maybe changing how people work to train them around using AI or ChatGPT as kind of part of their day-to-day. So does using something like artificial intelligence maybe take the expert out of expertise?
That's a great way to ask that question. Does it? I think in some cases it might, right? What I choose to also reframe a question like that in is to say, you know, this is sort of a force multiplier for each of us, right? So if we think about the last even just 5 years, and then 10, and then 15, we have increasingly been asked to do more with less. And it doesn't matter what sector we're talking about or which person we're talking to, we have seen this need to do more, right? With less resources or the same resources. So in those cases, in those instances, we can be using AI to create more efficiency and productivity and maybe kind of balance the scales around, you know, how we spend our time. Is using AI in our everyday work setting a way to get us a little more time for our personal lives? It probably is, right? So I think that's the real power, right? That's the real power.
And we've talked a lot about kind of the maybe more conceptual concerns around artificial intelligence, but there's also an environmental concern, isn't that right?
There is. And so, you know, if we think about, you know, what is making these LLMs, these agents do the things that they do, it's these very, very big high performance computing systems, right? So we're, you know, processing more data, we're computing ever more, you know, I forget what the last estimate of escalation around computing power that we've talked about, but all of those systems require more power that require more water, right? So, you know, we do have to think about, you know, the infrastructural needs around the use of AI over time to say we have to upgrade the grid, right? We have to understand what this will look like over time, or this will continue to degrade as well. So it's part of why I say, you know, if you just want to find some information, just use regular Google, right? Or, you know, or your other, you know, search engines. But if you want to process information or generate new information, that might be the time to use an LLM or an agent.
Sure. All right. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And I want to thank our human team behind the scenes here at WCAX who make our visits across the fence happen. I'm Jolie Whitney. This is Across the Fence. Have a good one.